started tweeting out with some hashtag about Marshfield drinks or something, and started saying, well, here's our program, here's this, here's that, here's the other. I would never suggest that you do that. That's an opportunity for you to step forward in a helping role, not a newsjacking role. What doesn't work either, especially in this digital age where everything is able to be found in seconds, not minutes, not days, not months like it used to be, is lies, exaggerations, hiding behind curtains, what have you. All of those type of things. Look what it did to poor Pinocchio there, right? If you're even exaggerating your statistics or exaggerating any of the types of things that you all do, maybe funding sources, what have you, you're not being transparent with your funding sources. And there are folks who will, I've been told, and I'm aware of as well, folks that work counter to some of your efforts and some of the issues that you deal with. That leaves them an opportunity to start criticizing your organizations and your efforts and some of the work that you're doing, because that information's out there. Everything is online, and everything is just a Google search away. Sometimes it's on page 3 of Google. Sometimes it's on page 1. Well, that's not in this presentation. So what does work is this, is using all the tools that are available to you, real world and digital, to build audiences that will respond to your calls to action. Building the trust, building the history, building the timeline of involvement in advocacy, in leadership, in communication, in transparency, and truthfulness, or truthiness, if you're Colbert, to build those audiences, and they're going to respond to you. And whether that's the editor of their local newspaper, the kids in the high school, the students in the high school, the families who are out there, or any of your audiences that you're trying to reach. Being truthful, transparent, open, with a long history of being there is going to go a million miles further than just showing up whenever something happens. So you've got to build, The key word here is building. Facebook did an activation about a year ago regarding organ donation. Did you know that you can sign up to donate head to toe through Facebook? In the first week they did this, and this program's, like I said, been out more than a year now. In the first week they did this, there was a 21%, more than 21% increase in the number of folks signing up to donate their organs. I did it. I saw it. I was like, oh, I did it. You can have. I'm not using it anymore by that time. Y'all can have whatever works still, or slightly. Y'all take it all. And then at the end of it, it takes about 3 minutes to do. At the end of it, there's a share tool. Post this to Facebook that you did this. I did that. I posted to Facebook. I'm like, hey, just try this out. It worked. Whatever, come get it. That post a year ago or so got more interaction on my personal page than any of the family photos or food and dinner photos, what have you, because I was doing something altruistic. There were people who were impacted. And just by a remote coincidence, a friend of mine, we're Facebook friends, but we're several layers away from real world connection. You guys have people like that? Her newborn infant niece was going through open heart surgery that day. And she saw it, signed up for it, so she's in an emotional state. She shares this story. She shares it, and it starts getting around the hospital, wherever I think they were in Springfield, actually. And this thing just blew up. So we ended up getting all these likes and shares, and I'm responsible for everything that happened with that because I shared that. But you've got stories, you've got calls to action just like this, maybe not as organ-related, but you've got stories just like this that your audience can be getting involved with, interacting with, sharing out there that's going to increase your footprint, your digital footprint across the internet and drive you to greater success. Something that you also have is a lot of competition. There are more than, this is from a political perspective, I guess, but there are more than 86,000 trade and professional associations that are registered across this country. From the national whoever's to the Missouri, these peoples, to the Cole County Lifesavers. That's not a real group. Should be. So all those people, all those associations, and then you bring in the 1 million plus charitable and philanthropic presentations or organizations who are competing for, again, the earballs and eyeballs and wallets and actions and butts and hearts and minds of the audience that you're trying to reach. So you got a lot of competition. Fortunately, you've got a lot of fish in your sea to try to get. There's more than 6 million Missourians and more than 313 million Americans out there who all have interests and causes and things in their real lives that impact them that they want to get involved with or are at least interested in knowing more about, that are issues that you all deal with on a daily basis. I think for the whole gamut, I know not you all don't do the same things, but from the whole gamut of issues that are represented in this room, I think we're all probably impacted by one of them, whether ourselves directly or through our families or through our friends. So I think everybody on 2 feet who has a heart, mind, and butt is a potential audience for you all, right? Yes? No? Maybe? Cool. I just hypothesized that right here. You've got a lot of competition. So it doesn't matter if you're my grandma shaking her fist at City Hall or the Tea Party shaking her fist at everything, or the folks who showed up at the state capitol for Medicaid expansion last February and whose real-world actions that day in Jefferson City torpedoed any hope, any glimmers, even if it was a small hope, of actual Medicaid expansion in the state of Missouri with their real-world actions that day, no matter how organized all the varied groups were before then. Because they got up there and some of them, well, what happened, if you're not aware, some folks got in there and basically made a human chain in the Senate chamber where 2 senators were there trying to get the issue taken care of. 2 Republican senators were in there trying to get the issue passed through the Senate. And they ended up having the Senate shut down that day, and they lost all support last session because of their actions that they took. Those things reflect upon you, obviously, and are going to reflect upon your success. What you've got to do in all of these forms of communication, again, real world, online, social media, is tell stories. What's your story? When I was a younger Missourian, a less married Missourian, I would go to the drinking establishments, of course, after I was of legal age. Truth and transparency. I would go there and I would meet the young ladies, and one of my first questions not lines, was, what's your story? Because I wanted to have her give me her elevator pitch, basically. Tell me where she's from, where she works, where she went to school, who her parents are, what they do, et cetera, et cetera. What am I trying to do there by asking that information? I'm trying to reach common touchstones. Oh, my dad works there. Oh, I went to school there too. Did you know so-and-so? Which enables us to take the conversation further. I'm building points of interest. Telling stories, personal stories, again, either heart stories, I get confused sometimes, heart stories or head-related stories, pragmatic or emotional stories, is going to help us draw our audiences in and build that heart-based or head-based connection to the efforts of what we're trying to do, to build our audience. And in some of the sensitive areas that you all are dealing with, there's no shortage of stories. There's no shortage of at-risk stories or success stories or help-needed stories. Here's how we work stories, behind-the-curtain stories. Tell those stories. What's your story? And then be ready for the reactions. When that connection is made to the heart, mind, or heart, head, or butt, and the people show up at your door going, how do I help? Where do I send my money? I've got a kid here. What do I do with him? You've got to have the things in place to be able to respond to those people who have responded to your appeal. You guys seen this before? Is this a pragmatic approach? Is this an emotional approach? Who's given money to Sarah and her dog? Anybody? I just started using this piece here because I thought it told the story well. And everybody laughs because everybody's aware of it. But I've yet to find one person who's given one dime to help Sarah's dog. I'm about to make you cry. Sarah and the ASPCA, or the Humane Society, I forget which this is for all of a sudden, but they are telling an emotional story, an emotional appeal. There's piano tinkling. and the wings of the angel, and the dog with the eye patch. The rocket group has a dog with an eye patch, not literally. You all have a dog with an eye patch. These are components in a story that they're using to compel people to hopefully open up their wallets, and if nothing else, become more aware of the organization and to download Wings of an Angel. And this is all going more and more through social media. More and more of these messages, these appeals, because the affordability, the access to the audiences, the ease of use, organizations like Sarah and her dogs, or the Rocket Group, or ACT, are using social media, multiple channels of social media, to take messages to targeted or earned audiences. We'll do applause here. Who has a Facebook page, a business page for their organization? Who has a YouTube channel for their organization? A little less, but they're proud. They're proud. I want one person to clap. Somebody has a LinkedIn page set up for their organization. All right, there he is back there at the back of the room. What are those gift baskets? It's for you, sir. How about Twitter? Who's tweeting? Let's do a show of hands. Who's tweeting? Who has a Facebook page? I thought it sounded the tweeters were more proud of their tweets. It was louder. It was louder, and that's great. I'm biased for Twitter. Twitter's my favorite social media channel, but I thought there might be more people tweeting than have Facebook, and that was going to be great. I was going to retire. My work is done. Another example of a story that blew up through social media, and this is a couple years old. Anybody fly United or have United Rewards card? They're not really local here in Missouri anymore. United Breaks Guitars. Anybody heard of this? Okay. Real quick, United Breaks Guitars is the story of this dude who has a band, and he had a very expensive guitar. It was handmade and had been handed down from the Pilgrims or something. I forget the whole backstory. But he had boarded the plane, and you know those times when the luggage guys are running late, and you can watch them coming up the conveyor belt? Well, he sat there and watched them take his guitar, and basically they were playing football on the tarmac with his guitar case while he's sitting there pounding on the window that his grandpa's guitar is getting busted to shreds, and it ended up being busted to shreds. So what this guy did, and you can Google United Breaks Guitars, because more than 14 million people have watched this video to date, as of the other day when I updated this slide. He wrote a song and made a music video called United Breaks Guitars, which is now spun into his own little media dynasty. He's got a book and a whole 9 yards. But anyway, it's about how companies, brands, organizations, what have you, have got to be aware that everybody is the media these days and will tell your story for you if you're not telling it for yourselves. United, it was an irreplaceable object. They bought him a new guitar. That's how it all ended up. But 14 million people have been impacted, plus the 60 or so in this room right now, have been impacted by United Breaks Guitars. And when they've got a choice to make a choice on an airline traveler, are they going to go American or are they going to go United? Which are the same now, aren't they? I just thought of that. So United American breaks guitars. Another thing United Airlines did that you can't really see on the screen, that's a luggage wagon there. And this is the story of how United almost killed this person's dog. She asked me if Sarah was involved. Thank you. That was good. That was good. Again, this lady watched her dog being loaded, and what she was told was going to be a special canine apartment, which turned out to be a Walmart dog crate, and shoved into the luggage hold, where there's temperature extremes, noise extremes, fumes extremes, et cetera, et cetera. They were able to save the dog, but the dog was on death's door when they got to the destination. And that poor woman had her heart broke from Atlanta to Honolulu or wherever they were going. I forget where they were going. So what did she do? She Facebooked that before they took off. and by the time she landed, it had hundred thousands of likes and shares, et cetera. Again, framing the perception of the public